happens at the coronation service with King Charles at Westminster Abbey? What should we expect? Queen Elizabeth had her coronation in 1953 and it took 3 hours. King Charles III is going to shorten that. However, there are several steps to go through and 6 main steps that take a little bit of time. We're going to discuss what those 6 steps to a coronation service at Westminster Abbey will be. I am Deanna from Hot for History. Please subscribe and like our videos. We like to share royal family news as well as teach you some history that I guarantee your history teacher would never teach you. The ceremony really represents the formal ascension of the British monarch to the throne. And although King Charles was made king following the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth, the actual coronation and official crowning of the king is occurring 8 months after the death of the previous monarch. Queen Elizabeth herself had her official coronation 16 months after the death of her father, King George VI. The institution of the crown is over 1,000 years old. Once the king is inside the abbey, there are 6 parts of the coronation service. It starts with the recognition, and this is where the monarch is presented to the assembled congregation. It consists of dignitaries, family members, friends, peers, the parliament. At Queen Elizabeth's coronation, there were like 10,000 people inside. I don't know if they're going to have as many, but there will be thousands. In the recognition service, he's presented to the north, south, east, and west of the abbey. Trumpets will be heard. There will be joyous shouting of God save the king. King Charles will then be sworn in with the monarch's oath, also known as the coronation oath, promising that he will govern the kingdom with justice, mercy, law. And that has been an oath since this Coronation Oath Act that was way back in 1689. King will also swear to uphold his responsibilities as the head of the Anglican Protestant Church. Then there is this anointing oil. He said he's going plant-based. So King Charles sits in the coronation chair, the King Edward's chair, as the Archbishop of Canterbury marks the monarch with holy oil. And it's time for the investiture and crowning when the monarch actually receives the coronation regalia, which is the orb, coronation ring, scepter, and rod. As the Archbishop of Canterbury places the St. Edward's crown on King Charles's head, the congregation shouts, "God save the king," and bells ring out from across the kingdom. And then over at the Tower of London, there's this 62-gun salute. And then he is led with all of that stuff. And by the way, it's very, very heavy, very heavy. He is carrying all of that into the enthronement. Then there's this homage. The Archbishop of Canterbury and other bishops and the Lords Temporal, which is princes and seniors and peers, they swear their allegiance to the new ruler. It always was the princes, meaning it would have been Harry and Will, anybody who was a prince. But now it's going to be only William because there was this confusion with Harry having to do that as well as Andrew. If there's a queen consort, or in the case of Queen Elizabeth, there's the prince consort, then they are anointed and also crowned following the homage. Queen consort, also known as the Queen of England, people. Then there's this secret sacred ceremony that's after that. You don't get to see because it's so sacred. With Queen Elizabeth, they didn't want to televise it. The belief is that the British monarch has this divine right. The Archbishop of Canterbury pours holy oil from Charles II's gold ampulla. It's this gold eagle filled with this oil. It's just used to anoint each monarch. So all of the regalia is also considered pretty sacred. Then it's infusing him or her with God's spirit and rendering them unassailable. It's sort of like a baptism with oil, diamonds, lots of ancient priceless gold, regalia, and then bam, you're the king of the world and you're in charge of the church. You're anointed with spiritual authority. This act of consecration will not be televised. It wasn't televised with Queen Elizabeth as well. So since the 12th century, British rulers have been anointed using the coronation spoon, the oldest piece of coronation regalia. One thing regarding the coronation oil is that it was destroyed in 1941 during World War II in a bombing raid. Queen Elizabeth's coronation oil was made up by a different recipe and it was the 17th century recipe, and it had things like sesame seeds and olive oil and jasmine and musk and orange flowers and roses, floral blend, but it had to be recreated because the original anointing oil was destroyed. And they also used this medieval book called the Liber Regalius, which is sort of an instruction manual. The Liber Regalius, or Royal Book, it's this manuscript that details how the order of the ceremony or service should be done. It was originally written back in 1382 in Latin, and then it was translated in 1603 for the coronation of James I. The ceremony today is based on the 1603 translation. Westminster Abbey has been home to royal coronations for almost 1,000 years. Since 1066, when William the Conqueror was crowned, there are also hundreds of dead bodies in the place. George Frederick Handel, who was the composer and is the composer of some of the music that will be done during the coronation, is buried there. Sir Isaac Newton is buried there. Geoffrey Chaucer, Elizabeth I, Edward the Confessor, Henry III, and Stephen Hawking and Laurence Olivier are buried in Westminster Abbey. Monarch wears multiple crowns during the coronation. So you will see the St. Edward's crown made in 1661 for King Charles II, and that's during the coronation, at the moment of coronation, and it's a copy of Edward the Confessor's crown. Was melted down by parliamentarians during this whole battle between Catholics and Protestants. The monarch puts on the imperial state crown, which was created in 1937, which is a headpiece that includes the Cullinan diamond and the Stuart sapphire when they exit Westminster Abbey. There's special crowns that have always been created for the Queen Consort. Mary of Modena had a diadem coronation crown and a state crown made for the coronation ceremony of her husband James II in 1685. And then Queens Charlotte, Adelaide, Alexandra, Mary had crowns specially made for their husbands' coronations. Queen Mary also added the Cullinan III, Cullinan IV, and Koh-i-Noor diamond to her coronation crown, which was known as Queen Mary's crown. Koh-i-Noor was later added to the Queen Mother's crown. Camilla is using Queen Mary's crown, but she's taking out the Koh-i-Noor diamond and just using the Cullinan diamonds because there's a lot of controversy around the Koh-i-Noor diamond because of its connection to India and how it was somewhat manipulated into the hands of England. Similar problem with the Cullinan diamond, but those will be the diamonds that will be used. The invitations and guest lists include leaders, representatives from all over the world, not all royal family members. In fact, George IV would not allow his wife, Queen Caroline, into his coronation. During the coronation of George VI, they did not allow Edward VIII, who had been king, into the coronation, or his wife. They were not invited or allowed to attend George's coronation ceremony in 1937. After the service is complete, there is the coronation processional, which is basically the exit from Westminster Abbey, followed in their processional with Prince William, Princess Catherine, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. Other senior royal members will also follow them out, and then they will get in their carriage, and on their way back to Buckingham Palace is a 5-mile long ride that they will take. There will be millions of spectators. They will go through Whitehall, Trafalgar Square, Pall Mall, Hyde Park Corner, Marble Arch, Oxford Circus, and finally down the Mall to end at Buckingham Palace. Once they are at Buckingham Palace, the King and the Queen Consort, accompanied by members of the royal family, will appear on the balcony to conclude the day's events. And the big question is whether or not the balcony appearance will be only senior royal members, or if Harry, Meghan, and their children, and Camilla's grandchildren and children will be allowed to be on the balcony stage with them to wave to the large crowds who will be screaming, "God save the King." That is the information that you need regarding the service. This service that you'll be seeing for the coronation is ancient. Please subscribe to Hot for History, where we will share royal family news as well as history that I bet your history teachers would never dare to teach you.